A dimly lit room held a glowing monitor that cast flickering light over a cluttered desk where a notebook lay open. In the kitchen nearby, bowls of food sat untouched, waiting. The young man's thoughts drifted between the many obligations life demanded and the equally long list of desires he wished to pursue. At that moment, he was engrossed in a computer game, his mind wandering to distant places. He pictured himself perched on a high cliff overlooking endless horizons, yearning for adventure and travel. Then his thoughts shifted to friends, imagining laughter-filled nights, clinking glasses, craving more moments shared with them. Softly, he envisioned holding the hand of a girl, the warmth of a date stirring a gentle smile on his lips. He pondered the frustrating limitation of being able to do only one thing at a time, remembering a long-time wish, to have not just one body, but two. Suddenly, his clone materialized beside him, confirming the fulfillment of that dream. Outside, the busy streets bustled with people going about their day. A bully sneered confidently, boasting that once awakened he'd gain a powerful and impressive skill. Nearby, his friend chuckled, hoping for something that could boost intelligence. The boy walked through the crowded city, fatigue weighing on him. He averted his gaze, desperate to reach home and escape the overwhelming noise. Surrounded by the throng, he longed once more for a second body to share the load. At that moment, a man raised a microphone calling for everyone's attention. The A-class hunter lifted his gaze and announced that he would oversee the government's new initiative, the 10th Portal Awakening Program. A surge of lightning crackled around the man's frame as he explained the program's goal: to help individuals awaken their latent abilities by stepping through a mysterious portal. With a wave of his hand, Bonte encouraged the city's residents to succeed in their awakening and declared the start of the process. The first group lined up, tension mounting. Sonu raised his eyebrows, realizing his turn was imminent. A girl, holding paperwork, approached, greeting him and confirming his number and group placement. He responded that he was number 7 in the 37th group. She scanned his hand with the device and gestured toward the portal, instructing him to enter. Leaving his gear behind, the young man stepped forward into the swirling darkness. Bolts of bright lightning erupted from the black rift as bystanders watched with wide eyes. Closing his eyes tightly, Sonu reached his hand into the portal. The system began identifying him. Soon a confirmation appeared. Registration complete. His eyes snapped open, hand pressed to his forehead, a sharp pain flooding his senses. He staggered, realizing he'd momentarily lost consciousness. When he came to, he found himself inside a sterile building buzzing with drones hovering overhead. A frown crossed his face. He wasn't alone in feeling queasy. Nearby, a girl conjured a magnificent fire phoenix, her joy evident as guild members rushed to recruit her. A stranger approached Sonu, smiling warmly and congratulating him on awakening. "How are you feeling?" he asked. The young man stood, admitting he felt sick. The man assured him it would pass soon and asked if he had checked his new skill yet. Sonu frowned, replying he was about to. Suddenly, a status window popped into view. His eyes widened in surprise as he realized he had gained the cloning ability exactly as he'd hoped. He examined his stats, disappointment creeping in at how low his numbers were. Raising an eyebrow, he decided to read the skill's description carefully. The system revealed the maximum number of clones depended on his level. Currently, he could create only one. Thoughtfully scratching his chin, Sonu's jaw dropped when he read there were no special restrictions on using this skill. It could be applied to everyday tasks as well. The stranger folded his hands behind his back, sensing Sonu had finished reviewing his info. "So, how's it looking?" he asked. Sonu admitted it wasn't great. The man smiled reassuringly. "Don't be discouraged. Every newcomer starts with weak stats. What skill did you get?" When Sonu named cloning, the guild rep stared in amazement and grinned broadly. The boy blinked, confused by the reaction. Tilting his head, he asked if the skill was really that bad. The stranger explained that some only got illusion cloning, clones without bodies that couldn't interact physically. Sonu smiled to himself. His clones were different, real and tangible. Raising his hands in a calming gesture, the man said, "This was far better than awakening with no skill at all." He offered to help Sonu demonstrate the skill to nearby officials for proper evaluation. The young man looked around. A crowd had gathered. When he lifted his hand, it instantly turned to stone, drawing close scrutiny from guild representatives. Sonu frowned, feeling uneasy. He asked where the exit was, and the stranger explained that before leaving, he'd need a final scan and registration with the research team. One by one, people entered capsules surrounded by swirling white smoke. An employee sitting at a laptop confirmed Sonu's skill registration, noting a 73% chance of manifesting one or more abilities. The worker raised his eyebrows as he confirmed cloning was successfully logged, the data sent to Sonu's ID bracelet. Later, holding onto the handrails of a moving bus, Sonu glanced at his bracelet, surprised by how quickly everything had unfolded. A new wave flashed on the small screen, and he wondered what his new power truly meant. Outside, clouds drifted lazily over the city skyline. Upon arriving home, he asked if his friends had performed well during the awakening process. Multiple monitors flickered on his desk, displaying an intense battle in progress on screen. Sitting down in his chair, the awakened player placed his hands on the keyboard, eager to test something. An inventory window appeared, showing a shield description he found unimpressive. Lying back on his bed, he shrugged it off, uninterested. Staring up at the ceiling, Sonu mused on the waning popularity of games and hoped for a fresh release to rekindle excitement. Hands clasped behind his head, he remembered the looming costs of tuition and rent, and silently wished someone else could take on the job instead. Suddenly energized, he jumped from the bed and recalled his skill once more. Glancing at his ID bracelet, he decided to test its effect. Standing in the center of his room, waves of radiant light pulsed outward, wrapping his body in a shimmering aura. His eyes snapped open wide as he activated his ability. A brilliant blue haze surged forth from his chest, filling the space with swirling energy. His mouth opened in shock, and a startled scream escaped him. Before him, a thick cloud of glowing energy coalesced, and inside it, a dazzling light blazed brightly, illuminating the room. As the smoke dispersed around his feet, a perfect duplicate of Sonu stood beside him, identical in every way. He raised his eyebrows in astonishment at the sight. A soft white haze swirled around the clone's bare form as he stood steadily on the floor. The young man's eyes widened in disbelief, and he asked quietly, "Is that really a clone?" The identical twin raised a brow and nodded in confirmation. Curiosity overcame him, and he stepped closer, tentatively asking if he could touch the copy. The clone gave silent permission. Feeling a bit awkward, the student frowned nervously, realizing just how strange the situation was. To snap himself out of it, he gave himself a sharp slap across the cheek. Gathering his composure, the gamer reached out and grasped the clone's shoulder firmly. The protagonist's mouth dropped open in astonishment. This was a genuine physical body, not some mere illusion. A white mist shielded the clone's groin area, preserving modesty despite his nakedness. Sonu smiled wryly and remarked, "I should probably find you something to wear first." Nearby, a crumpled sweater lay discarded on the floor. The twin picked it up and slipped it on without hesitation. Sonu then recalled that he could actually command his double with his mind. Tentatively, he imagined telling him to sit down, and instantly, the clone obeyed, lowering himself onto a nearby chair. Grinning, the young man realized he didn't even need to vocalize commands. His thoughts alone were enough. Mentally, he ordered the devilish double to stand, and he rose immediately. Then he sat back down, repeatedly, his face glistening with sweat from exertion. The gamer scratched his chin thoughtfully, concluding that his clone possessed the same stamina he did. Just then, His phone vibrated inside his pants pocket. Pulling it out, Sonu noticed a string of messages from his comrade. A chat window popped up on the screen. Jiando was boasting about having acquired 2 hunter skills, urging Sonu to respond quickly. As Sonu typed his reply, his twin took deep breaths, trying to recover. The comrade teased, guessing Sonu must have received some lame power, and laughed. The young man frowned, annoyed, and called him a real chatterbox. Suddenly, a notification flashed before Sonu's eyes. His stamina had increased by 1,000th. Meanwhile, high atop a rooftop, George stood, his figure silhouetted against the skyline. Known as the owner of the flicker skill, he was an S-class ranker, the first ever to conquer Odin's tower, an impossible feat until now. Back inside the main building of the Enlightenment Group, elevator doors slid open. A guild employee stepped into the office and reported that current analysis showed 80% of the nation's 300 million population had awakened abilities. The guild leader asked how soon they could expect full awakening, 100%. The woman glanced at her tablet and estimated that, based on current program participation, it would likely happen within 5 years. Looking out at the sprawling cityscape, George thought that wasn't such a long wait after all. Elsewhere, the protagonist went for a run. His cheeks flushed bright red, sweat dripped down his face. Some athletes sitting on a nearby bench watched him. One remarked aloud that Sonu might collapse soon, running in such heavy clothes. Taking a break, Sonu plopped down on the bench, just as a stranger handed him a bottle of water and smiled kindly, encouraging him to drink before the next lap. Sonu opened his mouth to reply but stayed silent. Soon enough, he got back up and resumed running. The woman on the bench watched him leave, guessing he was just an introvert. Sonu jogged through the park, pushing himself. Later at home, he stepped onto the scale and saw the number, 78 kilograms. The slimmer gamer pursed his lips thoughtfully. His body was becoming more toned. Scratching the back of his head, Sonu realized he'd lost 9 kilograms that month, even though he constantly felt hungry. He marveled at how his body improved day by day despite doing nothing in particular. Checking notifications of his stat increases, he mused that maybe it was true. The skills really did reflect a person's hidden desires. Sitting down, he recalled something important learned through using his clones. He imagined hitting one of his copies and watching it run circles around the park, noting that the pain and fatigue the clone experienced never transferred back to him. After an exhausting sprint, the clone dissolved into thin air, because clones disappear once they take too much damage or expend energy beyond their limit. Sonu studied his twin carefully. Its appearance mirrored his own perfectly. While Sonu rested on the bed, his copy kept exercising tirelessly, despite the distance between them. Clenching his fist, the gamer mentally commanded the double to activate his skill. But it was impossible. Sonu closed his eyes, realizing this made sense. Otherwise, he could create endless clones without limit. Earlier, sitting alone in a dark room, the boy had browsed the hunter's wiki on his monitor. His eyebrows rose in disbelief, never imagining this day would come. The page displayed a search bar and explained the difference between normal and special stats. Most awakened individuals had only normal stats, while unlocking special ones remained a mystery, except for a few exceptions. Suddenly, a status window popped up in front of Sonu. His stats had increased slightly. Smiling, he thought it must be because his clone trained non-stop, working hard to fulfill his commands until reaching its limits. He put his hand behind his head, pondering whether this meant he could double his gains if he moved alongside the clone. Picking up a gym flyer from the desk, he read that it offered personal trainers and a full exercise program. Looking back at the screen, he saw a battle raging. Sonu smiled, deciding that he would act as the brain while his double handled the physical tasks, the limbs in their shared fight ahead. The young man unlocked his phone and quickly checked his account balance. A frown crept across his face as he realized he didn't have enough money to cover the registration fee. His gaze drifted ahead, and he recalled how much he'd been spending on food lately. Looking away, a firm decision took shape. He would need to find a part-time job. Resting his fingers on the keyboard, the gamer raised an eyebrow, thinking that construction work might be perfect. Not only would it help him build physical strength, but it would also bring in some cash. Scanning the list of available jobs, he understood that he had to tackle this himself first. The clone couldn't be ordered to perform a job neither of them was familiar with. Sonu's expression shifted to curiosity as a vacancy description popped up on the monitor. Vukan Logistics Center was hiring delivery workers. Seeing this as an ideal opportunity, the young man pressed the call button and brought the phone to his ear. He told the manager he'd found the job posting online. The manager explained there was no need for an interview. He could come right away and start working immediately. Surprised, Sonu replied that he wanted to begin tomorrow, only for the employee to ask if he could start today instead. Hesitating briefly, the awakened one looked away and agreed. The manager said he'd be waiting for him at the logistics center by 6 p.m. Hanging up, the gamer wondered if anyone else worked there at that hour. Shrugging, he decided it didn't matter. As long as he got paid, he was fine. Outside, trucks rumbled as they departed the logistics center. Sonu slipped his hands into his pockets and assumed that was the place. His clone stood nearby, face obscured beneath a mask and a cap. The young man glanced at him, deciding it'd be best if he didn't reveal his double's identity. Raising his hand, he silently told the clone to answer questions carefully and introduce himself as Jundo while on the job. Scratching his head, Sonu looked up at the massive building and wondered which direction to go. His surprise grew when a voice called out to him. A man beamed a wide smile and asked what had brought him there. Sonu's mouth opened in recognition. It was Doc Chill. The man shook his hand warmly, noting he barely recognized him since he'd lost so much weight. The protagonist thanked him and explained he'd come with a friend to start a part-time job. Pointing toward the building, Doc Chill said the office was inside. Sonu scratched the back of his head in gratitude as the man said goodbye.